What's up, Trekkies? Okay, so by popular request, being one person, anyways, there has been a request, an explanation of the beam energy types. I say beams because I'm a science ship, and the only cannon I'll ever use is powered by aux. Anyways, so yes, what I'm gonna go over here today from memory. There are a crap ton of hybrids. I mean, just let's take a look here. Yeah. It's starting in like regular, and it just keeps going into the hybrids and the specials. And then we get down into torpedoes. It's huge. I believe I know what most of these do. I use Polaron, so I can go over the basics and then we'll just talk about the small hybrids. Do I need my pad? I need my coffee cup. Ow! Ah, legs. Ow. Okay. I think solves it after leg days. Coffee. Anyways, we're off topic here. Open the internet. So, guess we'll go alphabetically because that's how this thing's listed. Go away, Jason. I get messenger. Go away. So, anti-proton, which also does include chronoton. So for the wells, you've got your chronoton beam. Chronoton is a damage type, but it's not even a torpedo damage type. It's just what basically the proc effect is, and that's mostly what these are. Is when you have anti-proton and thus the chronoton beam array. It's just that the beam array, or dual beam bank, there it is. It does chronoton, it can't do chronoton damage because there's no chronoton damage, so it does anti-proton damage, but has the chronoton proc. That's the idea there. And chronoton for the torpedoes is reduced turn rate and flight speed. And then there's disruptor, which is disruptor damage, pretty much comes basic on Klingons and Gorns, yada yada. And then those are, they expose a little bit of weakness. They're really good if you're playing a support class. You're not worried about, anyways. I don't think there's anything that actually increases that duration of the buff. There might be. I have not checked that one out because I don't use disruptor. Phaser, it says, includes retrofit and Andorian phaser. Phaser is the basic federation. That has a chance to just, to the 2.5 chance. Now that's 2.5% chance per time it damages, not per time a beam goes out. Because when the beams hit, they actually do like 3 damage or something like that. Because when it's really funny that you can actually have 3 chances for the thing. It's because I fired off just a singular beam and watched 3 little numbers go across. And it was a beam array. Phaser has a chance to disable a subsystem. Now, there is no intensity of that, so you can't really increase it by skill per se. You can increase it with subspace decompiler, which will increase the length that that subsystem is offline. Not by much, but it can be fairly significant. But it comes standard on Federation stuff. Plasma is basic Romulan. It has a little dot. Now you burn, and 2.5% chance. You pretty much deck out your entire ship in plasma, and especially if you're a beam boat, and pretty much it's got that plasma dot on it a lot of the time. And then we have Polaron, my favorite. Technically I choose a slight variant. Anyways, I like Polaron because one, the color, and it wasn't used back in the beginning of the game because nobody liked it. I liked it because it was one of the top end damages for you guys. It'd be over here. Because it used to be Phaser, Disruptor, Plasma, Tetryon, Anti-Proton, Polaron, and you'd have to put points in each of these. So you had to put direct points into like Polaron, and I've maxed out my Polaron because I liked its proc of energy draining. Because the energy drain was affected by flow capacitors, which is an early science skill. It still is. So like my things can disable, or they drain if it procs. When it procs, it drains 27 to all subsystems. That's pretty cool because I have a lot of flow capacitors. And then there's Proton, which is basically just anti-proton. And the Proton just comes from the specialized. I mean, it's, if you're looking for what it gets buffed by, it gets buffed by an anti-proton console. And each of these has their own respective console. And then there's Tetryon, which is white, and it's like with a little lightning on it, and it does shield damage. It's a shield, what I call a shield cutter. It's really good. Again, affected by flow capacitors. Be really nice. We're getting into the hybrids here for a second. Dominion Polaron, don't remember what that does. It says it's a hybrid, but I think it's because it has the anti-proton thing. Click that. Let's figure it out. Come on, I'm on my wireless. Ah, okay. Dominion Polaron Beam Array. 2 target, all power levels, and minus the shield. So it's a Tetrion Polaron thing at the same time. Polaron damage, Polaron proc, Tetrion proc. That's the idea of the hybrids. They have a main base damage, which is what your console will affect, and then it has both the procs of the other. We'll get into a few more here, and I'll talk about the funs of those. Phased Polaron, that's my favorite one. The only things I do have that are actually, anyways, I have a turret in the back and I have a dual beam bank up front. That's phased Polaron, and that is Polaron damage, has the Polaron proc and also the phaser proc, so if I'm not draining power, I'm draining power levels, I'm just knocking subsystems offline. Because who needs Tetrion when you just especially when you're a science vessel? Like escorts I can see using Tetrion, because it's a shield cutter, and cruisers using them because they cut through the facing of the shields because they're damaging the shield facing. But as a science vessel, you don't really need to because you just target shield subsystems, especially if you got good flow capacitors. Then that's knocking that down by like 60, and then if Polaron procs, oh crap, guess what? They have no shield power and their shields are offline, so your Tetrion kind of sucks. That's why I don't use transphasic, but we'll get into that one. Plasma Disruptor, same thing. Does one of the 2 damages, probably. Looks like Disruptor. Does Disruptor damage, but has a Plasma proc. Phased Tetrion, Phaser does Tetrion damage, has Tetrion proc, so can disable subsystems, can shred shields. Polarized Disruptor, which just has cool icons in and of itself, but it puts a damage resistance debuff on them, does Polaron damage, and the Polaron proc of reducing subsystems. Protonic Polaron, Anti-Proton, and Polaron damage, not that bad. Spiral Wave Disruptor, I don't really remember what those do, considering they really only came out on one ship ever. Why is my thing? And then Romulan Plasma, I don't know what makes that so different. What do we got here? Protonic Polaron, 2.5% all current power levels, 2 target, 25% chance. It's versus Voth. Does a little bit of damage, double against Voth. Then Spiral Wave Disruptors and Romulan Plasma. I think Romulan Plasma is just like Super Plasma. I'm gonna be yelled at for that one unless I open this up. Romulan Singularity Harness. Why did you open that up? Experimental Romulan Plasma Beam Array. Experimental. Come on, open the thing up. Plasma damage and a dot and okay. So it has the disruptor on it. So it's disruptor plasma, not plasma disruptor. That's just how things go. And then I lost it. So let's quickly go over. And then there's like other ones like the ones from the fluidic space. From fluidic space, that basically just has it does anti-proton, but has a chance to push you back, which is nice. It's pretty cool. Especially if you have to have like a dual beam array and you beam overload that, so they get a crit and they get knocked back. You can't guarantee it, but it's really cool when it happens. Sort of like in my heavy graviton beam. If I have like full aux and everything's going really well and I'm gonna knock, and it has like a plus 1,000 repel on it, and they're at 2 kilometers and I just bam, and they blow up and the corpse gets pushed away like 8 kilometers. It looks really funny because it basically looks like a falcon punch. Then yeah, that's biomolecular. Caustic actually has a bigger dot. Actually, I thought it was, but it's plasma with more. Destabilizing Tetrion, I forget what that one does. Elachi Crescent just looks like a crescent and it's disruptor damage. Fluidic Antiproton, begin that one. Biomolecular Disruptor, Biomolecular Phaser. Read up on those. Refracting Tetrion bounces. That's really cool. Voth Antiproton has bonus stuff. Has bonus little crit stuff, doesn't have bonus effect. Then the Kinetic Cutting Beam, which honestly everyone should have a Kinetic Cutting Beam. If you don't have a Kinetic Cutting Beam, I don't know why. And you don't like your weapons, because a 360 thing because if you blast away something's shields, that Kinetic Cutting Beam is doing kinetic damage straight to the hull, and it's one of the few ways to get kinetic damage affected by your weapon power, because torpedoes are not affected by your weapon power. And then with Chronoton, for the torpedoes, we'll go over this one real fast. Chronoton again slows the targets. They also have usually bonus effects like the temporal device and a few other ones. Photon just has a short cooldown, or it's a normal torpedo. It just does that, and Chronoton fires multiple. I do 3 because it reminds me of Star Trek First Contact, plus I use high yield too. Photon, same thing, has a like 6-second cooldown, we'll call it, and it will fire multiple. Plasma fires heavy ones, but blows up, has a dot. Smaller ones have a chance for a dot. Heavy one pretty much, I believe, puts on a dot and it does like a shit ton of damage, but can be destroyed. Quantum, longer cooldown, let's call it a 8 or 10-second cooldown, but does significantly more damage. Consider it like a bigger gun and stuff. It fires slower, but it does more damage versus like a pistol for a photon torpedo. But again, it fires multiple. Transphasic, again, fires multiple for a high yield, and it bypasses shields when it hits. Like, again, I don't use transphasic because, why? If something typically doesn't have many shields, I don't need to bypass shields, although it could be beneficial in Voth City ships, who pretty much constantly have their shields up, unless you have like 8 science vessels really trying to drain that thing's shields. I've seen it. I've done it. I've been there and I've used my tachyon beam and I've seen like 3 tachyon beams on that thing, and just like its shields get down to like little tiny slivers and you're like, yes! Anyways, and then Tricobalt, it makes a heavy version, and that's just a raw nuke is what it is. The heavy gravimetric device qualifies as a photon torpedo, but it has an added effect that it works like a heavy. Boom! And it pulls things in at the same time. Tricobalt doesn't actually pull things in. Bioneural actually shoots things near it. Ferengi, I don't really know what that does. The Harpang has a dot on it that explodes when it expires or the enemy explodes, so it has an AoE. Thermionic is a Nukara thing. I don't get that. It's from the Tholian Web mines, they ensnare things, and then Tractor Beam mines, same thing. They ensnare things. Really good. That's all of that. I could go into more. Let's check biomech. Yeah. Anyways, so I hope you guys kind of understand that one. Comment below which kind you use for which sort of ship. I mean, like I said, I used Phase Polaron. I would maybe use Dominion Polaron, but again, I don't really need to worry about things shields. Yeah, again, I fly Vesta and I'm kind of a anomaly thing. By the way, bragging a little bit, I was doing the mirror event and I was fighting the ISS Kirk or whatever, and my Care Bear Stare, or the quantum field focus phaser for the Vesta, hit. It actually killed it. Not in one hit. It doesn't do that. It's a dot. But one of its hit crit for 38k. Well, there's an overkill. But yeah. And Aaron like dropped his yogurt when he heard me say that. He's like, well, that was just a lucky hit. I'm like, just a lucky hit? No. And I scrolled back and found it again and went, wow! Scrolled back, found it again, wow! Scrolled back and I found more and more. Where I was hitting like well over 20k. I was critting for well over 20k with my Vesta console. So people are like, so what kind of weapons do you use? I'm like, I just use a smattering of whatever I think will work, because it's not the main focus of my ship. I am addicted to the damn Vesta. Next week, we will be talking about that long-range Tier 6 Voyager thingamabobber. I need to read up more on it. It was literally just announced yesterday, and I talked to Jason about it, and I was like, oh god, this looks weird. He's like, it might be a healing ship, and I'm like, that's weird. I will catch you guys later. Bye.